Hey everyone, we have an exciting show for you today. We're going to go over some of the numbers of what has happened in our local market of Simcoe County for January 2026.
We are Matt and Michael from the Webb & Young Group, Remax Hallmark Che, and this is the Real Estate Roundtable.
So before we jump in, one quick thing to frame this properly. January is always part of a slower winter cycle, and in Simcoe County, the spring market typically starts up in February. So what we're really doing today is we're comparing where prices landed in January, how that compares to last January, and how it moved from December.
Exactly. So we are going to be examining real numbers, looking at January 2026 prices as compared to January 25 prices. We're also going to be looking at December 25 prices, and we're also going to be examining the percentage changes so that you can actually get a feel for what's been happening with those real values.
Okay, so why don't we start off with Simcoe County overall?
Okay, so starting with Simcoe County wide, the average detached sale price in January 26 was about $790,000.
Yeah, and in January, the same time last year, 2025, the average was about $950,000. So year over year, that's roughly a 17% decrease.
That is quite a disparity for sure. And so when we compare those numbers to December 25, pricing was relatively flat. No sharp drop, which tells us values stabilized heading into the new year.
So the median price gives us even a better context of what is happening in our market. So January 2026 median sale price was about $732,500.
So when we look at last January, so January 25, the median was roughly $815,000. So that's about a 10% year over year decline.
And from December to January, the median price, it barely moved, which is actually a positive sign considering how slow January normally is.
And so when we look at sales volume, it dropped to 264 sales versus 327 sales from last January, which is about a 19% decline, and about 12% from December.
Okay, so average days on the market increased as well. So that's not that great for sellers, as we know, to about 59 days, and that was up from 49 days last January. That's roughly about a 20% increase.
And sale to list moved to about 95.9%, down from 97.4% last year, and slightly lower than December, confirming that buyers have more negotiating room.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more negotiation, and buyers are getting discounts right now. So let's discuss what's happening in Barrie next. So the average detached sale in Barrie priced in at January 2026 at about $768,000.
Yeah, in January 25, the average was roughly $858,600. So that's about an 11% year over year decline.
Okay, so the Barrie wasn't hit as hard as Simcoe County as a whole.
Yeah.
So from December to January, prices dipped slightly, but nothing dramatic. More, again, of this winter plateau that we're seeing.
Yeah, median prices in January 26 was $735,000.
And a year previous, last January, median was about $800,000. So that's roughly an 8% year over year decline. Again, not as huge as we saw in Simcoe County.
Agreed. And so when we look at sales volume, it shifted. There were 66 sales in January compared to 102 last January, which is a difference of about 35%, a decline of 35%.
Yeah, so that's
significant.
a significant amount of houses that didn't switch hands there. Average days on the market climbed to about 55 days from 43 last year, and that's a 28% increase as well in Barrie.
Interestingly, sale to list stayed strong at roughly 96.7%, only slightly below last year, and very similar to December.
Okay, now let's get into what's happening in Innisfil.
Okay, so in Innisfil, the average detached price in January 26 was about $847,000.
In January 2025, average was about $959,700. So that's roughly about a 12% year-over-year decrease in Innisfil.
Mm-hmm. What's really interesting, though, is the month over month. So when we compare December's average, it was significantly lower. So January actually looked or showed about an 18% increase month over month, largely due to the mix of homes that we're selling at that point.
Oh, it's very, very interesting of the change from December to January.
It really is.
Median prices in January 2026 was $815,000.
And so last January, the median was around $890,000. So that's about an 8% year-over-year decline.
Sales dropped to 28 transactions from 33 last year. I know it doesn't seem like a big gap, but that's about a 15% decrease year over year.
Mm-hmm. So the average sale to list was about 94%. And essentially every home sold below asking, which is very typical of the market we typically expect to see in January.
For sure. Okay, now let's go into my rural roots of Oro-Medonte. So Oro-Medonte is where averages can really move around due to lower volume.
So in January of 26, the average price was about 1.7 or 07 million, 1,070,000.
Yeah, that's quite a high number for the small township of Oro-Medonte. So January 2025, average was roughly $926,600, which means values were actually up 15% year over year in Oro-Medonte.
Yeah, and interestingly, the median price in January of 26 was $755,000.
So last January median was around $790,000. So that's about a 4% year over year decline. So with these numbers, it all depends as well of the size and the price of homes that are selling in a market as well. So we have to take that into consideration too.
Yeah, 100%. So interestingly though, sales volumes were only 10 homes. So one or two high-end sales can really skew those averages.
So average days on the market dropped from about 80 last year to 64 this January. That's roughly about a 20% improvement. Still having your home on for 64 days is a long time for a lot of sellers.
It sure is.
So let's talk about Springwater now, Michael.
Okay. So in Springwater, when we're looking at January 26 averages, the price was approximately $970,000.
And last January, it was roughly $1.34 million. So that's about a 28% year over year drop in Springwater.
That is really quite significant. And so when we look at the median price was $1 million in January of 26.
And January 2025, the median sale price was about $1.09 million. So this is a little bit more maybe realistic, but there was a decline of about 8% year over year.
Mm-hmm. And so when we look at sales volumes, they were similar last year, but lower than December of 25, which is what we expect to see over the winter months.
Yeah, we're starting to see a little bit of a trend in these smaller communities within Simcoe County.
Absolutely.
So let's discuss Clearview now. So Clearview had very low volume, only 6 sales last month, January. So percentages swing a lot.
Yeah, the average sale price in January of 26 was approximately $1.03 million, so $1,030,000.
And last January, it was roughly $767,000. So that's about a 35% year over year increase. And again, is that realistic? Because we only did see those 6 sales last month.
Yeah, and we know that those fewer numbers can really skew the averages. So when we're looking at the median price was $846,000 versus $645,000 last year, which is a 31% decrease.
But average days on the market jumped from about 40 days last year to over 90 days this January. So now let's look at Essa as a whole. Michael, if you can take us through some of the stats for that.
Yeah, of course. So in Essa, January 26, the average price was $865,000.
Okay, and January 2025 average sale price was around $769,000. So that's roughly a 12.5% year over year increase.
And the median price was $840,000 versus about $745,000 last year. That's roughly a 13% increase year over year.
And sales volume was actually pretty steady year over year. And average days on the market remained at about the mid 40s or so for days on market before a home, actually switches hands.
Mm-hmm. So to wrap things up, Matt, what do you have to say overall?
So when you line these numbers up, January looks exactly like a winter market should.
Yeah, year over year shows us where prices reset. Month over month shows us stabilization heading into February.
So for sellers, pricing accurately, it really matters. And timing matters, of course, but not as much as the accuracy for pricing because the winter months are typically slower before we come into the spring market.
Yeah, that's a really important takeaway. So for buyers, leveraging exists, especially before the spring market fully kicks in.
And February is where we'll really start to see whether momentum builds the way it typically does in our area. That being said, Michael, over the last few years, we haven't seen typical markets. So we'll have to see, and we'll follow up with you next month to show you exactly how the February real estate market turned out.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the market has demonstrated that it can be quite volatile, which is why, knowledge is power, and we're committed to providing you with all the data that you need to articulate smart decisions for you and your family.
100%. Again, we're Matt and Michael from the Webb & Young Group, Remax Hallmark J Realty. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. Go to our webpage, webbyounggroup.com. All of our contact information is there. And of course, for our YouTube channel, make sure that you like and you subscribe. Thanks everyone for now, and we'll talk again soon.
Talk to you soon, guys.